Good morning, everyone. Was everyone here for the last session, or are you guys just coming into this room now? Okay. So this will be a great continuation, so hopefully you learned a lot about great SEO from Carolyn and Dave. Today we're going to talk about the Mobile First Index. So who's concerned about the Mobile First Index? As someone who works with surveys, level of concern, very concerned, somewhat concerned? Raise your hand, you're very concerned. Okay, we got at least someone. So a little bit about me. So Kevin introduced me as Director of Organic Product at SurveyMonkey, which probably means nothing to most people. What it means is I lead our SEO strategy, and I'm responsible for SEO growth. At the same time, I'm also responsible for the page that everyone sees after they've taken a survey. So we have about 4 million survey takers a day. So we have a lot of people seeing that page, and that page is designed to convert them into survey creators rather than just survey takers. So that's a lot of fun to think about the viral strategies and then to align that with how that can work with just growing organically with our massive SEO footprint. So I've been at SurveyMonkey now for about 5.5 years. I joined as SurveyMonkey's first SEO, which for anybody that likes SEO it was like being a kid in a candy store. You'd never had an SEO. At the time, the company was 12 years old, had backlinks from everyone from like the littlest blog in the world up into the White House, which the White House links I found were going to 404 page, so that was the first thing I was able to work on. While I was working at SEO, I got very interested in international, and I came up with this idea that I should move to somewhere international, and I chose that I wanted to live in Asia. So I actually moved with SurveyMonkey to Singapore for nearly 2 years to lead our APAC marketing, and came back last year and back in the States. So this is my email address. That's my Twitter account. Add me on LinkedIn. I accept everyone, so feel free to pile on. And this picture of me over here is relevant for later. So I'm posing next to a toilet. Okay. Yes, there's a picture of me next to a toilet. That's my email address, by the way, so now you know it, and I'm just not making it up. I have one. So what this picture is I went to visit a company in Indonesia called Kaskus. And Kaskus is basically a combination of Reddit and Quora of Indonesia. It's the largest internet property in Indonesia. And for some reason, Kaskus is the name of the company, and it sort of sounds like toilet. So that is their mascot. And everyone that comes to visit their office poses next to the toilet and signs their name. So that is my favorite picture from my entire time in Asia. So I'd like to get a little bit of audience participation because everyone's sitting here kind of quietly. So can everyone please stand up? Now, does everyone here have a mobile phone? Okay. For those of you that don't, it's okay. So with everyone that has, I'm going to combine two kinds of operating systems together. Everyone with a BlackBerry and a Windows phone, please take it out of your pockets and raise it over your head. Someone, really? And a couple other people just ran out, but that's okay. Everyone with an Android phone, please take it out, raise it. All right, a lot of people without phones, but that's great. Okay, iPhones. Okay. So now, what just happened, you can all sit down. What just happened here is you guys all looked around and saw the phones people had, and you judged them. Those of you with iPhones turned and looked at those of you with Androids and looked at them and said, they are cheap. They are not using the latest product. They are being sold by Samsung, and they don't realize how amazing the iPhones are. And those of you with Android just looked at those with the iPhones and felt like they're in a cult. They just don't know. Now, there are a lot of things that people talk about when mobile phones and say people with iPhones spend more money, people with Android have slower phones. And those aren't all correct. So I just ran a survey on people's mobile habits. So hopefully you've already decided to follow me on LinkedIn and follow me on Twitter, and I'll share the rest of the survey. But here are a couple key points about the survey that I ran. So 62% of millennials look at their phone notifications before brushing their teeth. Now, I asked this question as, do you look at your phone notifications before you brush your teeth? Or do you brush your teeth before you look at your phone notifications? And I did follow a survey best practice, which is to allow people to say they do something else. And the something else, thankfully, is a lot of people said they go to the bathroom. So let's disregard those people. there are a lot of people that are looking at their phones before they even wake up. So that's a really cool fact. Next is that 50% of people use their phones as an alarm clock. So that's kind of cool. It helps you understand where those phones are. We might have assumed that, but that actually puts a real number behind that. And finally, relevant for today's presentation, only 58% of people use their phones to shop, and only 31% of people use their phones to order food. If you believe the media hype, you probably thought that was close to 90%, and it's not. With that in mind, let's start talking about the Mobile First Index. So a lot of you have probably seen this blog post or heard lots of talk about this blog post. This blog post came from Google. And I'll underline the relevant parts, and hopefully it's not really small on your screen, but I'll read it out to you. It says, our index will be built for mobile documents. We're going to continue to build a great search experience for all users, whether they come from mobile or desktop devices. That's Google saying they're no longer going to crawl the desktop web. They're only going to crawl the mobile web. What is on mobile will be on desktop. So all those people searching on desktop are going to find the content that was found by the mobile crawler. That's scary. That scared a lot of people. There's been a lot of talk about that. So let's dig into that a little bit more. So why would Google want to do this? So a couple of years ago, Google announced that they had a mobile algorithm, that they're now going to rank pages differently on mobile and desktop. Makes a lot of sense. There are a lot of mobile searchers. So they're running two algorithms. They're running two crawlers. They're running two algorithms. That's very expensive. That's two Googles. So they want to save a little bit of money. They don't want to have different sets of code. More importantly for Google, Google wants to advance the world. They think mobile devices, in their minds, those of you with Androids are probably thinking it's Androids, is the future. And they want to push everyone towards the future. We only need one ecosystem, the mobile ecosystem. So they want to only have a mobile web, mobile crawlers, mobile rankings. Sort of makes sense when you see this chart. In 2016, there was more mobile internet usage than there was desktop usage. Google very happily touted this fact. The mobile web has overtaken the desktop. Time to start focusing on mobile. But let's look at a different chart. Here's a breakdown of a day. So most people sleep for about a third of the day. Some of you sleep a lot less, some of you sleep a lot more, but on average, people sleep about a third of the day. They're at work a third of the day, and then their other third of the day, they're doing lots of stuff. So this is a different chart. There are only 24 hours a day, and despite what anyone wants, there are only 24 hours in a day. This is the amount of time people used to spend online before mobile became something we all had. People were online while they were at work. They were in front of computers. They were using the internet. They were searching Google. Maybe a little bit at home, but really, there were only 8 hours a day that they were fixated on their computers and online. Mobile changed that, so now this is the amount of time we're online. So what happened here is we added another 8 hours of internet usage to our day, but we did not take away the 8 hours that we were already online on the desktop computers. That's why you see that intersecting line. That's why the mobile web is more popular than the desktop, because it goes with that us everywhere. I've run other surveys on how people use the mobile web and how they use their mobile devices, and I discovered that 25% of people admitted, so probably higher, are using their phones on the toilet. That's not something you were able to do with a desktop. So most people can't do that. Or in the bathtub. So that's why you see more mobile usage happening as there are more uses for mobile. But it doesn't take away that people are still using the desktop. There's still lots of time they have a desktop in front of them. So what do people do on mobile? So they use apps, they use dating apps, they read reviews before they buy things, they play games. Some people are ordering food, they're buying event tickets, they're planning for trips, a lot of things that seem like the future. You have a computer in your pocket, you might as well use that computer. What do people do on desktops? So I did not build the slides from my mobile device. That would be very, very hard. We're doing a lot of real stuff on desktops, and that's not going anywhere. If you're one of those people that can write long-form email on your phone, God bless you. But most of us can't do that. That's happening on a computer. Putting a link in an email, putting a bunch of links in an email from your mobile device, Very, very difficult. That's probably never going to change. Even on a tablet, that's not going to change. You can't really have multiple tabs and different software running. Shopping, you may look at the Black Friday sales of what you'd like to buy on Black Friday, but you're not spending $1,000 on your mobile device without going somewhere else and reading reviews and spending a lot of time. Trip planning, I've planned a lot of trips. My phone is always a part of that trip planning. But again, there was a desktop. There's always a desktop involved in those big decisions. And we're still working on our desktops. Those are in front of us even if we have a mobile phone in our pocket. The desktop is just so much more convenient. It's so much more powerful. So let's look at Google's mobile first announcement in context with authorship. Who here remembers authorship? So very noble idea. Can I underline this? And you probably can't read it, so I'll read it out to you. Actually, I can't read it either, so we'll make it up. But Google essentially said they've created authorship, and they're going to use it to make a better web. And when you get these slides, you'll see, it says they're going to rank results based on authorship. That is a very noble concept. To go from ranking web pages based on what the web page said, who links to it, they're going to say, this author is very authoritative. They have created their own blog. They used to blog in the New York Times. I'm going to allow that blog to have the same authority as the New York Times. Great idea. No one adopted it. So then they issued this announcement. It's over. So Google has lots of great ideas. They don't always carry off into reality. Some of them will stick around in some way. But just because they're saying it's going to happen doesn't mean the rest of the world will follow.
I'm sorry, could you very briefly explain what authorship is in this context?
Authorship was a concept of putting your, it was actually Google+, so that's another one that we can have a whole session on, of putting your Google+ profile on your page. So when you write content, so if you write for the New York Times, you tie in your Google+ profile. If you're writing your blog, you tie in Google+ profile. Google recognizes that's the same person, so it has the same authority. But it only works if a lot of people do it. They can't change the results if 10% of people do it. So in my opinion, our world isn't ready for mobile first. So I have a couple screenshots here that are worth looking at. The first one, the commuter rail in the Bay Area where I live is called Caltrain. So Caltrain just launched their brand new app with great fanfare. And this app now allows you to buy your tickets on your mobile device. You don't have to go to a ticket vending machine. You can have a ticket on your phone. When the conductor comes, you show them your phone. This app is not just to have tickets. They actually allow you to do a lot of interesting things like trip planning. So I downloaded the app to see if it was any good. They're a quasi-government agency. And I clicked on the trip planner link. And there's your screenshot. They put their entire web page, which is not mobile friendly, as the trip planner in an app. And there are lots and lots of examples of people doing that. Unless the world moves to a place where they're building mobile web pages, Google can't really say we're not going to crawl the mobile desktop web anymore. And here's another one. I searched for the best restaurant in Portland. I heard from my Lyft driver that Portland is a foodie place. So this was a very convoluted result. So best restaurant in Portland gave me a Google local result. Google gave me two interesting things on that local result. They gave me a menu, which if I clicked the menu, downloaded a PDF onto my phone. Not mobile friendly. And they gave me a web page. If I looked at that web page on the desktop, I saw a typical restaurant web page. Hasn't been updated in 2014, the usual. Hours for Christmas. But then on the mobile web, I was redirected to this. It looks like a mobile web hosting company, and I don't even get what that is. So like you have a very standard local result, kind of things people do on their phones, and this is completely disconnected from the desktop. If Google were to rank them on their mobile website, they would probably not show up. So the world is really not ready, or our world here in the English-speaking web is not really ready. So my time in Asia showed me what real mobile first looks like. So I had a couple interesting experiences, and this is in Indonesia. I went to the largest TV station or TV company in Indonesia, and we were talking about how they could potentially use surveys as a part of their process in developing stories. And I wanted to demonstrate something online, and I asked them for their Wi-Fi password, and they said, I'm sorry, I can't give that to you. So I said, you don't have guest access? And they said, no, we don't have Wi-Fi. When people at a TV channel want to use the internet, they go to a desktop that is plugged in on the Ethernet. Otherwise, they're using their phones to do their work because that's all they have. And they had another experience where I went to a publishing company, the company that publishes all the very popular magazines here, like National Geographic. So they are the company that has the license to publish in Indonesia. And we had a meeting at a desk, and on the desk was a notebook, like a real notebook with a pen and paper, because that's how they have meetings. When this guy, who was the head of content, wanted to use the computer, he had to go to the computer, the desktop computer. Otherwise, he used his phone. That is mobile first. In that world, you create content and web pages for the mobile web because people don't have desktops. That's not what we live in here. We aren't living in that. Most people are creating content for desktops, and then as a byproduct, they think of how it might work on a mobile web. We're just not ready. So to answer the big question, will you get penalized by mobile first? Probably not. Google can say that the web should be mobile first. They can say that they're only going to crawl the web. But if they stop crawling the desktop web, they're missing half of the internet. And that's not good for Google's business. People are going to search on Google, and they're not going to find what they're looking for, and they're going to go to Bing. And that's going to make Perna happy, but that's not going to make people that try to rank on Bing happy. So even Google started changing their tune. The first blog post I showed you was from the end of 2016, and now Google is changing what they're saying. Instead of being built primarily of mobile documents, they're now saying the mobile version of content for indexing and ranking to better help our primarily mobile users find what they're looking for. They're dialing back. They're going back to what they said, where there is a mobile penalty if you're not mobile friendly on mobile, but there's not a mobile penalty if you're not mobile friendly on desktop. There will likely continue to still be two indexes. So should you even do mobile SEO? Well, like anything in SEO, the answer to that, it depends. You have to know where you stand. If you have a mobile audience, you should do mobile SEO. If you don't have a mobile audience, you're just chasing a shiny object. You're just chasing what Google's doing, and you're distracting yourself from what you should be doing, which is going after where the majority of your users are. So one thing you can look at here is your Google Search Console. So I love the new Google Search Console. And you can break down your mobile impressions and your mobile clicks versus your desktop impressions and your desktop clicks. Where is your audience? Now, I recently, and I would suggest doing it under your brand, because that's what people are looking for you, or your primary keywords. What kind of devices are they using? And this is not what kind of devices they're using when they come to your website. This is the kind of devices they're using when they search for you. Now, I just looked at someone's Search Console for a company that their entire company is a mobile app. They are a behavioral company. They want people to download their mobile app and join their ecosystem. And I was helping them out with a project. And I looked at their Search Console, and I did this breakdown. They had 3 times as many searches for their brand on desktop as they did on mobile. Even more interesting, they had 3 times as many searches for their brand plus the word app on their desktop versus the word mobile. So people are using their desktop to find their app and get it downloaded to their phone. They're not even using the mobile to find their app and use it and get it to their phone. People are still using desktops, even for mobile usage. You can also look at your traffic in GA. So you can split down your traffic by device type, and you can understand what kind of users are coming to your website. If your users are heavily skewed towards desktop or heavily skewed towards tablet, which is, could go either way on the mobile web, you don't really need to focus that much on mobile. You'll be fine if you focus on desktop. Again, don't ignore it. It all goes into prioritization. Where should you focus your effort? Where should you spend your money? Where should you get people on your team working on projects? Should the engineers be working on mobile, or should they be working on desktop? The numbers will tell you. So if you've decided that mobile is somewhere you can focus, or mobile is somewhere you can afford to focus, I'll walk through a couple things you can do to do mobile SEO. So first of all, focus on the users. So when you're building your website and your products for the users, don't build it because Google said it should be on mobile. Build it for what you think the users want. And one easy way to do that is use a survey. You can put a survey on your website, survey your audience if you have access to their email addresses. Ask them how they're using you. What are they looking for on your site? This should be in conjunction with your analytics. So you should already know where they're going. Now you're actually adding some qualitative data to what they want. Maybe you shouldn't have a mobile website. Maybe what you should be doing is sending all your mobile users to an app. The only way you'll know that is by asking users what they're trying to do, maybe looking at the competitors and surveying users of your competitors to ask them, again, what they're looking for. Create the product for your users because that's who you have to satisfy, not engines. One easy thing to look at here is see if your website is mobile friendly. That should give you a very easy bar for what your baseline is. So Google has a mobile friendly test. You can Google that on your desktop and put your URL in there, and Google will tell you, are your buttons too small? Is your navigation hard to find? That's your baseline. Maybe you're not that mobile friendly and you can call it a day. Maybe you're terribly unmobile friendly and you have a huge mobile audience. This would be something you should focus on. Now, assuming you need to do mobile SEO, and some of you were in the room before, you just need to do regular SEO because the algorithm is still the same. The crawler is still the same. Everything that Google does, they're ranking web pages based on what they see on those web pages, basic SEO. So your title tags, you're going to follow keyword best practices. You shouldn't be writing different title tags just for mobile. The only thing you should think about on mobile is that titles will get truncated because the screen is smaller. So put those action keywords a little bit further in. So why they should click. The same goes with your meta description, your snippet. Again, screen is smaller. Actually, because it's smaller, people might actually read your meta description. It takes up the whole screen. So make sure you're writing that for thinking of that smaller screen of why would someone click, why should they be going to your website versus scrolling down on that page. Image alt tags, there's been some talk about whether the image library on Google, image search on Google, is built completely from a mobile first index. So that's possible. Make sure you're using image alt tags so when people are searching for images on their phone, they can find you. If you're not using image alt tags, your images are being ranked based on contextual keywords around the image, but you're basically not having a title. It's like leaving the title tag on your page blank. So this is an easy one. If your images are important, they're not just clip art and they're not just icons, label them, put an alt tag on them. And finally, if local is important for you, again, this would be a whole different session, put your name, address, and phone number, so NAP, on every single page. So that's the basics you need to do for local. Name, address, and phone number. Make sure name, address, and phone number is on every single page. That will give you somewhat of a leg up in local search. So you're doing basic SEO. Mobile SEO is SEO. The question is how far do you need to go down that road? So in 2012, Google recommended you be responsive. Again, prioritization. You shouldn't be responsive just because, again, it's a shiny object. But being responsive isn't a bad thing. It means that if someone's on a desktop and they split their screen, your web page won't look bad. If they're on a mobile device, your web page will work. So if this is something you can afford, if you have the resources for it, it's not a bad thing to do to make your web page look better for more users. Again, you have to weigh the costs of that and prioritize it against other things you can do. Page speed. So great session before talking about page speed. One of the things they pointed out earlier was having images. If you have 55 megabytes of images on your page, you're going to ruin someone's data plan if they're on mobile. But more than that, if you're focusing on page speed, you shouldn't be thinking, oh, if my page is too slow, I'm going to get penalized. Therefore, I need to be as fast as possible. That's not really the way page speed works. Page speed is a baseline. If you're above the baseline, you just show up. You don't get an improvement of your ranking because you're faster than someone else. If you're below the baseline, that's where the penalty kicks in. So why should you focus on improving your website? Because we're all users. How many of you are on your phone and like the data is slow and you're downloading a page and you're like, you know what? That's okay. There's no reason for me to go to that web page anymore. It's taking too long. I'm going back to Google and I'll do something else. So you're not focusing on page speed because the algorithm says you should. You're focusing on page speed because you're never even going to get that click if your website is too slow. That's why you want a fast page. So if you have upside there, use why slow, look for why your page might be slow, fix that. That you can always prioritize, and that's just not for mobile users. Next is your site navigation. So here's eBay. So eBay is a great example of a site that does everything, has everything, links everywhere. They have a very, very deep navigation. So if you look at this top-level navigation, they've broken down all the things you could possibly sell into very high-level categories. Then they drill that down, if you click in there, into other categories, and that's the way crawlers are going to discover the website. They're going to discover this website with millions and millions of pages from top-level navigation. Every time I've ever done any testing, top-level navigation is where I'll get the most impact. So eBay's following a best practice there. Not so much on the mobile web. They really shrank that. They have a mobile website, and they got rid of their navigation. So if Googlebot's coming through and wants to understand their mobile website in the context of being mobile first, they've pretty much lost a lot of their ability to help Googlebot discover all those pages, to help Googlebot understand how to rank all those deeper pages. So if you're building pages that you want to show up in a mobile crawling index, you should have your entire navigation. So maybe you want your header navigation to be a little bit smaller to fit on the screen. Make sure you have a sitemap. Make sure there is a way that all your pages can be found. Position 0, so this is the answer box. So this becomes even more important on mobile. Now this is something you should absolutely be doing on desktop, because if you get your result right there, every time I've gotten my result there, I've seen like dramatic increases in clicks. So you want to optimize for this by using header tags, H2 tags, H3 tags. Google will create these kinds of bulleted lists for you. Use ordered lists, use unordered lists. Put steps, put the kind of things that can show up in here. Build links, be as authoritative as possible. That's great for desktop. It's even better for mobile because the screen is smaller and you'll basically take up the entire screen. So this is something you want to do regardless. The tools I like to use for optimizing for mobile. So I love the Google Search Console because it really allows me to see where my users are, what my users are looking for on mobile versus desktop. For the most part, the keywords are kind of the same. The click-through rates, though, are dramatically different. That's interesting data to look at, interesting data to build off of and try to optimize for that. If I think that mobile, there's an upside on mobile, I might want to improve my meta description so I get a higher click-through rate, even to jeopardize a click-through rate on desktop. Do fetch and render. So within Google Search Console, you can see how your web page renders on different devices. If you have too much JavaScript, it's not going to show up, and Google's going to have a very hard time crawling. Again, basics things you should do, whether it's for desktop or mobile. And position tracking. So my favorite tool for understanding where I rank is Google Search Console. So you go into Google Search Console, and you can see where you rank on this mobile web. If you are being crawled by a mobile crawler and you're being ranked differently, very interesting point to see how differently you are being ranked on mobile versus desktop. Screaming Frog is a way of identifying if you have any mobile issues. So you can change the crawler on Screaming Frog to mobile Googlebot or Googlebot mobile, and you can see if you're showing a different site to mobile versus desktop. So this is an easy one. Crawl your desktop, do a dump of your entire site. If your site's big, you're going to have to use AWS. If it's smaller, you'll be fine with just Screaming Frog on your computer. And do the desktop crawl, and then do the Googlebot mobile crawl and see if there's any differences. See how long the pages take to load. See if your title tags are getting truncated. And then Hrefs. This is great, again, for understanding your competitors, seeing who's ranking on mobile. So this is one of my favorite tools for understanding the entire landscape of how my SEO is working. So to recap, Google's using this word mobile first. I think it's something more along the lines of mobile specific. So there's a mobile specific audience. You want to build for that audience that is on mobile devices. You want to rank for that audience that is on mobile devices. But the word mobile first, that is kind of tricky. Mobile first is Indonesia. Mobile first is India. Mobile first means those are the only devices they have in their hand. We are not mobile first. We are mobile specific. We have a growing mobile web. We have growing mobile use cases. People book Ubers on their mobile phones. They shop on their desktop computers. So very different uses. You want to build for those users and think of a mobile specific index. Understand those users. If your users are looking to buy things, if they're looking to research, that is very likely something that would happen on the desktop. If users are looking for directions or just looking for a local result, if you're a doctor or a dentist, that might fit better on a mobile device. And finally, Mobile SEO is SEO. So what the SEO you're doing for your desktop is the same SEO you're doing for mobile. If you decide or you need to go only mobile or mostly mobile, you're just doing regular SEO. You follow SEO best practices. And there's no reason to get all wrapped up in like, mobile first, this is going to kill me, this is going to change the entire index, and I need to drop everything I'm doing right now and move over to mobile. That's my email address. Any questions? You can always email me, and I think there'll be Q&A after.